All right, Bang Bang. Today is Tuesday. It's June 20th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. As always, I'm Eddie, and I'm joined by Chief.
It is Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. How are we?
I'm doing great.
Doing good, too. Doing good as well.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, doing great. Doing great. Doing great.
Say it again.
Great.
Yep.
Doing great. Today we are doing kind of like a pseudo pick six. We've talked about this when we did Raiders of the Lost Ark movie watch with Captain Cons, that we're going to do kind of a real telling of the plot of each movie.
Or like the artifacts themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So kind of a little quick hitter, pick six format.
Yeah.
Coming at you.
So the first three Indiana Jones, and then like basically it would be Barstool Chief Indiana Jones fan fiction. Like that'll be the second half. So three things that I'd like them to explore.
Because the new movie comes out June 30th, so next weekend it'll be out. Mm-hmm. So kind of a little Indiana Jones prep, because this is Harrison Ford's last movie.
Sad.
Not forever, but his last Indiana Jones movie, he said so.
If they were going to continue that series, who do you think could play?
Don't say if. They will.
Okay, so if they when
Hollywood,
when they continue that series with a different lead,
who's it going to be?
Who do you think it should be?
I hope it's Shia LaBeouf.
That's rude. That would kill it for me.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. But I don't know why you didn't see 4 just because he was in it. That's
dude. There's
a little overreactionary.
I'll try to stomach it at some point, but I still haven't seen it because of Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to think who would be a good new indie. It just can't suck, you know.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it too, because it's like he is like such a unique character.
I know.
Oh.
Like you'd have to like he's kind of in the vein of like Bruce Willis, where they're these action stars, but they're not these like Schwarzenegger or
it's not, because they had Hemsworth on KFC Radio last week, and it's like that guy's Thor. Like, Thor can't be Indiana Jones.
No, and I was thinking I had a weird, for some reason, the first person that popped in my head was Kieran Culkin. But that's not a fit either. That's not a fit either. He could probably bulk up,
close.
Though. What about...
he could be like the doofus who works in the museum.
What if he bulks up, bro?
No, stop.
I told you it was a quick thought. I don't know why my brain went there. It's probably
Can I tell you where my brain went?
And then I tried to argue for it, but I know it's not a fit.
The one where was John Krasinski.
I don't...
Because he did Jack Ryan, which was also a Harrison Ford thing. So maybe that's why my brain went there. But I think he might be able to.
What about who's the new Batman, Harry?
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, what about Robert Pattinson?
I never liked him.
No? Well, all right, if Chiefs don't like you, you're out.
You're out. Fuck you.
All right, then. Here we go. Indiana Jones, artifact number 1.
All right, so did you go back and watch the other ones or no?
I haven't seen Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade yet.
Okay, so first one you saw, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Correct.
The Ark is like a real thing, and was a real thing, or might still be a real thing somewhere. But that is described at length in the Bible in many different passages, like the description of it. So when you see them like carrying it out, they got the exact measurements of that from the Bible. So the Bible, it's in Exodus. I don't know how to read like the numbers when they do the Bible. I never learned that. But 25, 10, 22. It was like
I think that's how it is.
That's just how you read it.
John 3:16.
Yeah, I suppose. I guess you're right. Yeah. Yeah, but when there's like, I don't know, it's like they got whatever. Okay, so they said it was like a chest of shittim wood, which I think is a particular type of wood, also an Acacia wood, overlaid with gold, 3 feet 9 inches long, 2 feet 3 inches high, and 2 feet 3 inches wide. That's a conversion from an old unit of measure, which was in the Bible called a cubit. And they had the stone tablets from Moses that he got from God on Mount Sinai in there, and then they had a jar of manna. I don't know what that is. And then this other rod, and then they describe how they make. So like the reason, like it's not a fictionalized thing in Indiana Jones. It is like the real deal. And when you see them like, oh, like we're having these, all these like the legends of like how powerful this thing is. And it's like this, remember they had the nerdy, like Indiana Jones's boss at the museum. He was like, this is an unspeakable. And he's like, fuck off. Like, Like, I'm a careful guy. He packs his gun. And, well, the reason, like, there's legend of that is because that's in the Bible too. So not to, to the degree necessarily where people's faces were getting melted off like they did on that Greek island or whatever when they were testing it out before they brought it in front of the Fuhrer. But the Israelites lost this battle. They had it in their possession for a long, long time. They lost this battle to this group of people called the Philistines. And the Philistines were like, fuck you, we got your ark. And they were taking it all around their country. And in every city that they brought it to, people were getting like legitimate burns, tumors. They said that there were other like plagues, but like it was the speculation now is that there was some kind of like basically it sounds like radiation poisoning, where if you came in close enough contact to this, and that's another thing that's described in the Bible, is that it had to be housed in a particular way. And if you were going to touch it, you had to be, or carry it, you had to be wearing a particular type of clothing, basically as like a protection against whatever was radiating out of the ark, which, mystical, maybe it was like some, because, there are certain metals that are going to be super radioactive. Like it could be mercury poisoning, could be, lead like you get poisoning from certain things. And there were people who would get nosebleeds and, like I said, tumors and these other rashes and burns from being around it. And it happened so frequently that the elders and the leaders of the Philistines were like, Joe, just give that ark back to them. Like, and they did. They just like, hey, like we don't want, like we took your ark, we don't want it anymore because it's poisoning all of these people. And there's another story of a guy who just touched it without any of the protective clothing, dropped dead. Like got an electrical shock, dropped dead. So there's some sort of electrical property. So they show it as like in the movie, like all these ghosts and like demons and shit are flying out of it, and the lid goes up to the sky and it's like some kind of light tornado, and it's like, don't look at these things in the eyes. But it does sound like that scene, while they like, there might have been some truth to some kind of genuine health concerns where it's like people were getting tumors from being around the ark, written in the Bible. So that is like, I don't know, I thought that was pretty fucking weird. And it's something that, it hasn't been found, but people have been looking for it literally kind of forever. And there was tales that it was in France. There's tales that it was, there's carvings in these places in Arizona with like, that looks like ancient carvings. Like that looks like the Ark of the Covenant. So there's like all these kind of like who really discovered America there was like one of those things where it was like this lost tribe of Israel had like we're starting up a new thing across the sea, and they made it to America. And so they're, and then the real one that people really think is that it's in this place in Ethiopia. And it's in a city called Axum, and there's a church, and there are like a lot of Ethiopian Jews. Like there's just like, that's like a decent size of their population, or at least was. And there's this church called St. Mary of Zion, and then there's this other little chapel off the side of the church, and they're like, this is where it is housed. And the people who guard that chapel, because they don't really let anybody in there, they have like an element of radiation poisoning to them as well, where they go blind, they get cataracts over their eyes, they get higher rates of cancer, like a weird thing, and they attribute it to like, well, this is where the Ark of the Covenant is. So it's something that you would think if it was actually there, people would be like, knock down the doors and see if that's the Ark of the Covenant. Mm-hmm. But to date, nobody has done that. But the prevailing thought that is, if it is a real thing, it's still out there, it's in this place in Ethiopia. But at one point, it was a real thing, like described in detail by people in the Bible, by other sources from the ancient world. They describe the Ark of the Covenant and some of these like weird, sensational things that would happen in its presence.
Ethiopia. Keep that thing locked away.
Or not. Maybe we should, or maybe it's in like the movie. It's being studied by top men, and it's just in some fucking warehouse in a box. Right. Yeah,
probably. Number two,
Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom. set in India, and they have these, they call them Sankara stones. And they're like, the whole thing is like, we have to get these 5 rocks together. They light up, and they allow us to have like great power. And they took one out of this village, and the village like has this crazy famine, and people are sick, and the river dried up, but they only had one of them. So those are not real. But they are based on these things called Shiva lingams. And Shiva lingams are these, like, they look kind of like the Ankara or the Sankara stones in the movie, but they're very prevalent. They're everywhere. Or I shouldn't say that. There's way more than 5 of them, but they only exist in one place in the world, and it's in this river called the Narmada River. And this is, you ever meet, remember Hard Knocks? I think it was the Browns Hard Knocks. They had that tight end who was like into healing crystals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cajuiced.
Yeah. Devin Cajuice?
Something like that.
Okay. Well, people who are into the crystals, like the healing crystals, they're big into these Shiva lingams. Okay. Because they have like these, energies supposedly. And it is like a symbol of like a balance between the masculine and the feminine. And they have like some weird like chemical properties that are kind of like rare, but nothing's ever been proven that it can do anything. And then it's like a symbol of fertility. So like if you're into a crystal person and you're trying to get pregnant, you would get yourself some of these Shiva lingams. I don't know how to pronounce it, lingams, and fertility and good health. But it's not like an actual. It's not how it's depicted in the movie. Like you can find them in like the riverbed, but they are like these weird kind of like egg-shaped, weird-looking, smooth, like glass smooth rock, but found in that one river.
Oh,
so they do kind of look like what they're showing, but they're different sizes, but they don't like light up. But that is, they say it's like trying to get pregnant, get yourself some of those rocks.
No shit.
Yeah.
You trying to go?
No.
No.
You said I'm trying to go?
Well, yeah, just for,
Just get somebody pregnant?
Well,
just put it next to my nuts, get my sperm count up?
But you could probably flip that. You could sell that,
I don't hate that idea.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get Allison and Pilar. We'll get some dog walk Narmada River stones. Third one is the Holy Grail. Okay, so the Holy Grail is, it's like the King Arthur myth. So we watch like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And supposedly the Holy Grail in the movie, in Indiana Jones and in other places, is an actual cup, right? It's the cup that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper. And then it was a cup used to catch some of his blood as he was being crucified. And as the legend goes, this is my second favorite of the, and it's awesome. It's Sean Connery's in it. Like, it's a great movie. I highly recommend you watch that one too. If you like Lost Ark, you should watch Last Crusade. And it's like, supposedly the cup itself, if you drink from it, it'll give you everlasting life. It can heal the sick. It's like this cup that can perform miracles. And that's kind of like the basis of the Indiana Jones version of it. The other big version of it in pop culture comes from, have you seen the Da Vinci Code?
I have not.
Okay. So I hate to be this person. Da Vinci Code as a movie absolutely fucking stinks.
But the book is supposed to be a real deal, right?
So my whole life, I always hated reading in school and doing all that kind of stuff. And then when I had to read one summer, I had to read 6 books for Berkshire. They made you read 6 books. And I did. Yeah, it was a lot.
6 summer books?
6. It's a lot.
Oh my God.
So there was one book that the entire grade had to read. So you had to read that one. And then you got to pick 5 from a list. And the Da Vinci Code was on there. And then that Graham Hancock, Fingerprints from the God, was on there. And I read both of those. And that was like the first time I ever in my life, and it's happened very rarely since, really enjoyed reading. Because it was like, it has like Indiana Jones elements. And do you know the premise of the Da Vinci Code or no?
A little bit.
Okay. So the premise of the Da Vinci Code, Tom Hanks plays this teacher, and it's like, I was excited for the movie, but you can't just, it's so like detailed that the movie kind of moves too fast to
it was an uphill battle to make the movie in the first place.
Yes. Oh, what do you mean by that?
Because there's so many details in the book.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like some Hollywood story.
No.
But that whole premise is that there's so much symbolism in artwork and in history and in language that the Holy Grail isn't a cup. It's that symbol of the chalice, which is this, which they were like, oh, like that's a cup. When you have like a spear point like this, like if you think of like on a soldier, or a sergeant or whatever, I don't know, but they have like those spears, those patches. That's a symbol for the masculine. The reverse is a symbol for the feminine. So they're saying the Holy Grail is Mary Magdalene, who would be Jesus's wife. It's her womb, meaning that the Holy Grail is actually Jesus's bloodline, because when he was crucified, they were married and she was pregnant. So the Catholic Church for forever, up until just like kind of recently, like within my lifetime, where it's like that Mary Magdalene, a whore, a prostitute, like just like tried to like slander her name. What people now they've like, there's actually nothing in the Bible that says she's a whore. That what's that thing that we've talked about here before, where they like chose what was in what was going in the Bible in like 324.
Yeah.
What is the name of that thing? I'm blanking on it.
The convention.
Something like that. Yeah. Where they
the council.
Council of Nicaea.
Yes.
Good job. Thank you. I was never going to get that. But she had a book. So it's like Book of Matthew, there was like a Book of Mary, which is Mary Magdalene, because she was thought to be actually Jesus's wife. And if you think about it, back then in Hebrew culture, Jewish culture, everybody was married. Okay. Like you had arranged marriages. You were probably married by the time you were 16. If you were a boy, probably younger if you were a girl. So for Jesus to be 35 and not have a wife he would be like this cultural fucking weirdo. So it's more likely that Mary Magdalene and this woman who's around him all the time and is like supposedly like the lead disciple would actually be his wife. And that's like where the Da Vinci Code thing comes from, where they always say, I think they say it's Judas in the painting of the Last Supper is leaning apart from him. They're saying that that's actually Mary Magdalene. It's the only person at the table without a beard. And then when she leans away from Jesus, the negative space creates like that symbol of the feminine. And so they're like, it's Jesus's bloodline. And that's what's been protected forever. And it's even in like the language where like the word for Holy Grail was originally in like Old French and Spanish, it's sang real, which that means if you divide up the word differently, sang real means holy blood. And not like Holy Grail, specifically like holy blood. So that's what like, so then it's just like tracing Jesus's lineage all the way to modern times in theory, that you would have a direct descendant of Jesus Christ like living today.
That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So, and that's what the Da Vinci Code is more about, is the search for that Holy Grail, as opposed to Indiana Jones, which is an actual cup. So that would be the third one. Okay. Piqued your interest a little bit.
No, it did. It did.
You gonna read a book? Probably not.
Maybe I should try.
Audiobook. I'm a big audiobook guy.
How many pages?
Of the Da Vinci Code?
Yeah, 600.
It's a pretty thick book. It's like that.
Who's the author again?
Dan Brown.
Dan Brown, that's right.
And he I think that might be a trilogy. I know he's done at least one other one, and I think Tom Hanks made a movie of that, but I never read that one or saw that one.
I was going to say Mark Brown. That's Arthur.
Da Vinci Code pages. Let's see. Oh, 689. That's not bad. You could do that.
Close on the button.
Yeah. If this was Price is Right, you'd be sitting pretty probably.
I would, yeah. For sure, if it was the dozen.
Or the dozen.
Bonus
yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, what are the three things you would like to see?
All right. Spear of Destiny. This is also another Jesus one. Okay. So when Jesus is up on the cross, they were like, is that guy dead? We sure he's dead? And this Roman soldier named Lingus. Longinus, has this big spear, and he just jabs Jesus in the ribs, make sure he's dead. And you can, because they had to, out of respect, they wanted to kill him, make sure they wanted him to be able to have his funeral services before the Sabbath, because no one's allowed to do, if you're Jewish, no one's allowed to do manual labor on the Sabbath. So they're like, let's make sure this guy's dead so they can bury him and then just have their normal Sabbath. So they stab him. Like, yep, he's fucking dead. And blood and water pour out or whatever. And they say that gave that spear these mystical properties. Like, became kind of like the Holy Grail and the Ark, where it's like something's going on with this thing. And it became the spear itself. So Longinus had this vision, this revelation. He's like, almost immediately he became a Christian. Like, something came over him. He's like, this guy is the real guy. I can't believe I just stabbed the dead body of Jesus. And supposedly that spear, it was kind of passed down, and it became like this weapon of war, where if you were in possession of it and you kind of almost meditated in front of it, you could see into the future and you could win any battle. It was like this thing that really fucking helped you. And then, there's stories that it helped win these battles in the Crusades, and then it made its way back to Europe, and it eventually got in the hands of Charlemagne. So Charlemagne's a guy that I feel like he should be studied and known about way more than he is. He's the second most famous Charlemagne now. There's Charlemagne the God is way more famous than Charlemagne.
He is.
And so Charlemagne had this spear. Charlemagne was the guy who united Western Europe, because after the fall of Rome, it was chaotic. They had all these warring tribes, and the Moors were coming up through Spain. Charlemagne basically created what was called the Holy Roman Empire, and he unified France, all these different warring peoples in France, Germany, Austria, Northern Italy, kicked the Moors out of Spain, and became the guy. And he was supposedly would say that it was because he was in possession of the Spear of Destiny. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then it was lost for a long time, and no one knows exactly what happened to it. Napoleon was looking everywhere for this fucking thing, and then it was found and was placed in a museum in Austria, in Vienna. So Hitler got it. Hitler became obsessed with this thing, because he's like, I got to be able to see around corners. I want to have victories in battle. And it was one of those things where it's is this the real Spear of Destiny? Is the Spear of Destiny even a real thing at all? So, but there are actually, on the record, 2 of them. One is after World War II, it was found and put back in that museum in Austria and Vienna. And then supposedly there's another one that is in the chambers of the Vatican. The Vatican has it. But it's no, they won't authenticate. They're not oh yeah, this is the real one, or the same thing with the one in the museum. But it's just we don't know, but we're not getting rid of them. We're gonna keep them, but they won't authenticate them either. So it's a very weird thing. But it is. I think it would make a good plot for a movie, the race to and then Hitler gets it, and then what happens to Hitler?
Yeah. Dude, that thing's so fucking old.
See all this shit, dude.
Yeah,
all this. Wait, the next one is actually the oldest one. Okay. So it's the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, or Thoth. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I've seen it both ways. So Thoth is they say this one is 36,000 years old. Okay. So Thoth was this guy who they're is he a god? Is he a man? Is he this? Is he that? What they do say, and again, his reign, he founded a colony of Egypt after the Great Flood, because he was from Atlantis. Okay. And so he's kind of is this the guy who was responsible for the pyramids? And he wrote on this green emerald, tablet, so the secret to life and science. And then he is credited by Egyptians and Greeks and these other ancient societies as being I wrote them down. Like the Egyptians called him, the god of magic, god of wisdom, god of the moon. It's like, where did this guy even fucking come from? And then in a real way, he did create, supposedly that he's credited with language, like the creating of hieroglyphs that you see in Egypt. And then the Greeks credit him with creating science, religion. He wrote the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is how like the Egyptian origin story really is. And then also astronomy, mathematics, and alchemy. And this book, or this tablet, supposedly is for alchemy. And alchemy is like the predecessor to chemistry. Okay. And it was basically like supposedly in this tablet, if you can follow it and translate it and do it properly, then you can turn like base metals into gold. Okay. So if you think about, and this is not like some like kooky thing, there has been like all the best alchemists throughout history and some of the smartest people ever were studying this thing endlessly, trying to unlock unlock what it actually meant, because they believed that this was real. And there was at one point they knew that this tablet was in like the Hermetic peoples it was found in Greece. And they've been working on translating this thing for like 4,500 years, and it's been translated and retranslated, and now and then you fast forward all the way up to Sir Isaac Newton, right? One of the most brilliant people who ever lived. Understood gravity, all this stuff. You know how he died?
I feel like I know, but I'm blanking out.
He was trying to do studies and translations of this translation of the Emerald Tablet, and he was trying to turn lead into gold, and eventually died of lead poisoning. Okay, because that is like the level of how they say it might be the second most studied document in history behind the Bible. That this tablet, because people have been trying to unlock
Quite the claim.
Quite the claim. Not my claim, so people say.
They say.
They say. And that was like what he was trying to, that's what Sir Isaac Newton was being like, there's something to this. If I can just translate it. He spent 30 years on it. 30 years. And then he eventually died from doing it because he got lead poisoning. And there's a great Always Sunny. You never watched that show,
no.
Did you? He's like, he just died like a stupid science bitch because he's just not that smart. He thought he could turn lead into gold. He can't. And so that was like, if you could have like kind of a joint version of like the Dan Brown, Indiana Jones thing where you have to find the tablet and translate it and fan fiction like that. I think that would be, because it is, again, like it's a thing that multiple cultures have written about over thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So, and that's like, have you heard, like it's the predecessor, like it's linked to like the Philosopher's Stone is what they call it. And then the last one, this is like a real thing too. Have you heard of the Baghdad Battery?
No.
Okay. So the Baghdad Battery, it's a 2,000-year-old artifact. It's like a real thing. You can Google it. They found it in 1936 and it's a clay pot about like, this high. And it has an iron rod wrapped in copper, and if you pour an acid in there, so it could be wine, could be something, it actually generates electricity. So you could power a light bulb with these batteries that are. So it's like these people had batteries over 2,000 years ago. So the thinking is that remember we did like the Pyramid of Giza.
Oh, okay.
And Tesla, mm-hmm. where you're trying to do this wireless energy.
Yeah.
Well, there is this thing called the Dendera lights, and it's like it's a carving in Egypt, and they show like this. I don't know what else it could be besides a light bulb, but it shows like this light bulb, and the thinking is that because this is like an ancient Mesopotamian culture around generally the same time as when they would have had the ancient pyramids, where if Giza was this actual power station and they had the ability to draw electricity from the air, these types of clay pot things with copper and iron in there, and it's like, why those two metals? Like, how did you guys figure this out? That would be a battery and that would be used. You just draw it from the air and that would be used to like basically illuminate your city, your house, your whatever. And it was through that ancient technology. So there's been like a Mythbusters episode about this where they try, like people try to, it's like, oh, it's defunct or whatever. But they also ran a study on it. It's like, you can power light bulbs with these Baghdad batteries. So there's other theories that it was just used to like store like papyrus and things like that. But it's also, they haven't found any of these Baghdad batteries with actual papyrus in them. It's just like, it just looks like and it functions like a modern battery would. I think the first battery, the way that we think of it today, was made in like 1880 as a way to like store electricity. And this thing is, 2,000 years older than that. And who knows how long they existed before that, because they're just made out of clay and metal. So if you knock them all over, there's an earthquake or whatever, these things shatter, then, there's not going to be a ton of evidence of these electrical batteries. But it's just like the idea that ancient cultures had some other sort of electricity and illumination. And like, I encourage people to Google the Dendera. It's Dendera lights. And you see like this guy, like the typical looking kind of pharaoh guy, like holding up this glass thing with like the little wire filament. Like they knew how to blow glass back then. Like they could have probably created a light bulb. And it's just like that. I can't imagine it being anything else other than a light bulb in that carving. It looks exactly like a light bulb. So those would be the six. The three. Yeah, that's our pick six.
What if, and you said you haven't seen Crystal Skull? Mm-hmm. What if one of these is in there, and what if one of these is in the fifth one?
I mean, I'm gonna watch both of them. I'm gonna watch the fourth one before I see five.
Okay.
Yeah, but Crystal Skull is about aliens. That's like Dan Aykroyd has a vodka named Crystal Skull. Yeah. Like I don't know a ton about that. But I assume that's like linked to alien shit, which obviously if people listen to the show know I'm interested.
He's a big alien guy.
Yeah, Aykroyd is a huge alien guy. So, and I assume the fourth Indiana Jones is related to something with aliens. Yeah. And then other little Indiana Jones things like that monkey head at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, not a real thing. The cross and Cortez's cross, which is at the beginning of 3, they had a lot of golden crosses. I don't think that one particular was significant.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. I think we've given you a lot of Indiana Jones prep.
Yeah, I think everybody's ready. A little history, a little Indiana Jones.
Ready to go, June 30th.
Artifacts, conspiracies, all that stuff. Yeah.
I'm ready. I think we're like Lights, Camera, Barstool. We're going to be on Disney's payroll with how much we've talked about it.
So put me on Paramount Plus, whatever it is. I'm ready.
Yeah. All right, then. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching. That's it for today. We will see you all tomorrow.